Wonderful.
Okay, how about that? I'll stay on mute, you do your intro, and then I'll do the screen share. I think it'd be easiest because otherwise we're jumping.
Perfect.
Okay, welcome everybody. We're just waiting for everyone to come in. We've got quite a few booked on today. So we're just letting people come through the lobby. We'll be starting in in the next couple of seconds, really, just whilst we're waiting for people to come through. Okay. Hi, everyone. Oh, yeah, I'm on two screens. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Tom Weaver, and welcome to today's People session. It's great to see so many of you here. If this is your first time joining us, People is a space designed to support HR, people professionals, and those in leadership roles, helping you navigate the challenges of workplace wellbeing, leadership with real practical insights. But before we dive into today's topic and we introduce you to our guest speaker, I want to quickly highlight what's coming up. So our next session is on the 11th of March. That's the next Lunch and Learn session, and it's all about difficult conversations, a topic that many organisations have asked us to deliver on, and we'll be covering how to handle those tricky discussions with confidence and clarity, whether it's with the employees or leadership teams or even peers. Next week, on Wednesday, which is the 26th, we also have our People Network session, which is a chance to connect with others in the community, share insights, and get support from like-minded professionals. Plus, we'll also digest today's topic in a little more detail and talk about how it's relevant to you. And finally, if you're looking for a structured way to embed wellbeing across your organization, our annual wellbeing program offers 12 months of expert-led wellbeing support, making it easier than ever to create real lasting impact. If you'd like to know more, then I'll put my contact details in the chat and you can connect with me there. But that's it from me now. I'm going to hand over to Leanne and she can introduce today's speaker.
Thank you, Tom. Good afternoon, everyone. Really lovely to be back with you all. Now, for those of you who've attended Lunch and Learns before, you will be used to me delivering the sessions, but we have an amazing network of experts in all sorts of topics, and someone Tom and I have known for many years now is Sal Jefferies, and Sal has a really interesting varied background. So he has a background in human performance coaching, he's a contemporary psychotherapist, a yoga teacher, a strength and conditioning trainer, breathwork trainer, and he predominantly works with founders and senior management level experts to help them increase their performance, redefine their purpose, and create a peaceful mind. How wonderful does that sound? So when we were talking about some of the challenges that people face, one of the things that came across is you're spinning so many plates that sometimes it's really hard to think clearly. And so when that came up, I thought, who better to deliver a session for us than the amazing Sal, who can tell us all about things like decision fatigue, cognitive load. And so I will hand over to Sal.
Thank you, Leanne. Thank you, Tom. Lovely to be here. I shall be putting a deck up. Give me 1 second and we shall begin. Okay, so welcome to the People Lunch and Learn. And as Leanne said, we're going to be talking about thinking clearly. Now, thinking clearly is a must-have skill, most of you will know, to discern, to work, and to live well. And yet our mind is under a barrage of assault these days with all sorts of things. So I am Sal Jefferies. I think Leanne's already done a beautiful intro enough. My main focus is to integrate all of those things Leanne mentioned into how we function and perform well. So I use a blend of how the mind and body works, and today I'll give you a little taste of some of the thoughts that we know. Okay, an overview. So I'm going to talk of 3 things today: decision fatigue, cognitive load, and embodied cognition. Now I'm going to keep it fairly brief, so capture if any thoughts or questions as we come up, because we'll have a time for Q&A at the end. But there's a big impact on people. Leanne and Tom have spoken about this, and we think it's going to be super relevant. We're also going to talk about some tools how to mitigate some of the challenges that you might be facing. Okay, so first question, what is decision fatigue? Well, decision fatigue is the deterioration of our decision-making capabilities the more decisions we make. Now, that sounds obvious, but sometimes it's not really clear how many decisions a person takes in a day. Now, if you have a pen and pad or a digital one, I invite you to take 1 minute to think about how many decisions you might have made before even coming here. Breakfast, getting to the wherever you're at, what you're doing. Have a little go. And then imagine that spread out through the day. What do you think it is? Well, research says that we make between 33 to 35,000 decisions a day, which is staggering. That's a lot of decision making. And as we've already alluded to, the more we make, the more our decision capabilities fatigue. Now, contrast this with how many breaths we take. So as we're breathing throughout a whole day, a person takes 20,000 breaths a day. So as a contrast, it fascinates me how many decisions we all make, and are we making the best of our decision-making faculties? So it's a really key point. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about a story, a gentleman who ran the presidency of America, Barack Obama. You may know him. He used to have this situation where he'd have two wardrobes. I think one was blue, one was gray, and he only had those suits to wear. And his idea was that the less decisions of these kind of arbitrary nature, the more he could focus on the good things. And you may have heard other ones. The Apple CEO also does this, Mark Zuckerberg does this, but minimizing decision fatigue is really critical at high level. I want to tell you a little bit about some of the things we're going to look at today. Decision slots. So have a think for a second. When do you take a time to make a decision, and what strategies do you use? So one of the things we can consider is how we do deciding. For example, the Eisenhower matrix, do, decide, delegate, delete. One of these can be really, really helpful as a framework. So the first tool I invite you to think about is what frameworks do you use? And if not, I would go straight to the Eisenhower matrix. It's simple and it works. It's a really great decision slot. And we also know that the time of day that we make decisions are really, really important. First thing in the morning, our cortisol levels are up in the body in a healthy way. Our brain is at its sharpest. It is the best time to make critical decisions rather than decisions that don't need as much attention or focus. So morning productivity will be my second go-to suggestion of how to reduce decision fatigue and enhance your decision output. Thirdly, environment. Well, some of us work remote, some of us in office, there's all kinds of environments. But what is around us demands our attention. So if you're in any space, can it be tidier, clearer? And the obvious space that a lot of us don't think about is the desktop. How much stuff is on your desktop? Visual information coming in. Can you tidy that up? And one of the things here, as we got in the term reduce the micro decisions. Be like Barack Obama. You don't need to be making multiple decisions that are not helpful. So wherever we can clean that up and reduce that down, we leave more time and more brain power for decision. So to bring that together with cognitive load. Now this sounds similar, but decision making is an analytic process which is built on stuff, but that works through our wonderful brain. Now you may have heard of cognitive load, but essentially cognitive load is the working memory's ability, the amount of information comes into the working memory that we can process at any one time. Question for you: how many pieces of information do you think your working memory can hold? For example, you're hearing me now, you might be seeing the screen and the slide deck, there might be information around you. Perhaps you've got alerts on. It is thought that we are at best 3 to 5 pieces. 3 to 5 pieces of information going in our working memory at any time. And this puts a big suggestion to what we're looking at with regard to meetings, laptop, desktop, whatever's going on there. If we have a meeting running, listening to people, piece of information on the table, Slack running, so on and so forth, it's really going to fill up the cognitive load. And our working memory is fundamental because if we fill it up too much, the brain simply doesn't operate. And then we start moving towards a pattern of, at worst, burnout. So managing cognitive load is super, super important. Now, I want to tell you a story about Joe. Excuse me. Joe was someone I coached. She was an HR director. She had a busy job, busy commitments. She was a parent. She had a place where she worked from home remote, and she worked in the office. There was a lot. So we were working together in a coaching capacity. And what I noticed was Joe's problem. She was getting toward burnout very quickly. And my remit was to help her move away from that. Well, we worked through what was happening and like, tell me about your morning. Screen was on, phone was on, Slack was on, email was on, phone was on. There were children in the background. I mean, working memory overload. So there's no wonder why Joe not only was highly stressed and under pressure, but her performance was starting to fall apart. So we had a look at clearing all that up and managing that cognitive load. Because here's the thing, although our beautiful environment, our technology is really superb, the inner technology of our brain, our nervous system, our body, it hasn't really changed for about 100,000 years. We haven't really changed that much. So we're asking a lot of ourselves, and managing it is super, super critical. Okay. How many apps do you think you have running at any one time? Do you have a machine that's running, phone that's running? Do you have email that alerts pinging in? As a side note, if you are in a place where you're doing deep work, then deep work is when you're really, really focused. How long do you think it might be to get back on point if you're in a, let's say you're doing a report or something really important and you had to focus and an email alert comes through or a Slack alert or someone knocks on the door? Well, according to the University of California, it's around 23 minutes to get our brain back on focus. And I've coached many people who have a high workload and need to perform at their best. And if distractions are happening, this is critical. Not only is your work going to suffer, but you're going to suffer. So managing this is better for all, for health, for mental health, and for your performance. Okay, let's consider some of the strategies we could deploy. Now, boundaries. Boundaries are putting things in place, some frameworks around when to say yes, when to say no. And I know this is a tough one for a lot of people, particularly people who love to look after people, want to say yes, but it's really important to discern what you say yes to. So are you saying yes to too many meetings? Are you saying yes to too many workload? Managing your boundaries is actually the best practice for you, your team, and your whole way of being. Scheduling. Now, time blocking and putting things together is a really elegant task. So all tasks of the same nature happening one time. It's been found to be one of the most effective ways for output. And it reduces cognitive load because we're not having to think about other things as we go through our tasks. The other thing about scheduling as well is like, how are you doing meetings? Like, when are you prioritizing the meeting, when are you not? Something I've come across a lot is back-to-back meeting issues. I use the term contamination. I know it sounds a bit brutal, but I've seen it before. I coached a whole bunch of C-level people, and they'd come for one meeting, they went to the next meeting, and they had fundamental problems. But what they didn't realize, they were carrying whatever happened in the previous meeting, which was probably quite sensitive and challenging, into the next meeting. There was no breaks, there was no space. And this was causing this contamination, and then it's fundamentally rippling through their day. So back-to-back meetings, I know it happens for some of us sometimes, but where possible, schedule some space in between so we can separate that out. Super helpful. And one that you're going to love is the done for the day list. Now, most of us have a to-do list. I do, you got all those things on it. You've got to tick them off. What I found is that the done for the day list is more, how can we say, outcome orientated. So for example, if you had 5 critical things to do today and you put them on your done for the day list, as you work through, you get to a point of achievement. But for many of us, what we do with a to-do list is that as we work through, we load it up with more. Sound familiar? Now I've got this to do, now I've got that to do. So there's no end point, and there's no gratification in that, and there's there's no framework. So done for the day is really powerful. It suggested 3, maybe 5 key things that are critical in your day. And when you've done them, you are done for the day. And it stops this chasing the end of the result kind of process. So there are some really helpful strategies which tidy up cognitive load. They tie in with decision making and decision fatigue, and will start to help better output, less effort. Okay, let's have a conversation about embodied cognition. Now, I've mentioned this to quite a few people, and I know some people have no idea what it is, so I'll try and be clear on it. But essentially, our thinking, all the cognitive stuff we've been talking about, it is highly influenced by what's happening in our physiology, our body. It's affected by our emotions. It's very affected by all of the physical stuff, embedded, it's called. So with embodied cognition, it's really important to understand that our thinking is affected by a large amount by what's happening in the body. So stress is a big one. Lack of sleep is another one. Physical fatigue, if you sat at a desk a long time and your shoulders are gripey, all of this affects the qualitative nature of our thinking. Now, it used to be thought that thinking and the body were separate. The cutting edge sciences say that is simply inaccurate. We now have a lot of data on this to say that we know the body influences our thinking. So it raises us a great opportunity to consider, how are we physically? How are we emotionally? Is that what and how I'd like to be? I'll give you another story. Someone that's helpful to hear people. Tom, he was a super guy, director, really busy, kind of classic, workload up to here. Super guy, but overly, we could call it people pleasing. You might vibe with that term. But giving too much, doing too much for his team, doing too much for everyone. And I was coaching him, again, to manage his burnout or edge of burnout and to help him flourish at his best. And what Tom hadn't realized is that he was missing sleep. He wasn't physically active enough as he would like to be. He wasn't eating so well, and his whole physiology wasn't in the optimum state. And he was wondering why he was struggling to make critical decisions, good thinking, and to be the best he could be. So we worked on it. We had a look at how was your breathing, how's your sleep, how's your physiology, and over a period of time, really shifted that around. So Tom then could be a calmer, clearer, more impactful leader, and tidying up the negative emotional patterns that came up with his demands. Okay, let's look at some of the strategies we can do. Physical. There are lots of physical qualities, but simply knowing what your body is doing at any moment is great. I've coached people on body language in meetings and high, sensitive situations. What's happening if our shoulders are up, if our jaw muscles are clenched? Physiology is affecting the psychology at all times. So by checking in with yourself and noticing how you are, perhaps even at this exact moment, how you are right now, and then how you are going forward, if you're sleeping well or not, can you take care of that? State. We're talking about emotional / mental state here, but looking after your state. Are you stressed? Are you under pressure? Do you need support? Are you reaching out? Taking care of our state really affects our thinking. So a highly stressed individual will have a quality of thinking which is probably fight flight, and a person who's in a calm state and steady will be in a more creative state, likely be a flow state. So these are really important and impactful things. Environment's another one. So what's happening in your environment? Is your workspace designed with some nice light and there's flowers and plants, or is it chaos and a mess? Can you organize your environment to be part of the signals that are coming into you feeling at the best? And breathing. Now I know Tom and Leanne are big into this. I am too. How we breathe is one of the easiest, most impactful tools we can use anywhere. It affects your state, it affects your physiology, it affects your thinking, and it's a free tool that you can use at any time. So breathing is one of the best things that we can do to really manage that. Okay, so let's tie it all together, connecting all the dots. So we've spoken about decision fatigue, we've spoken about cognitive load and embodied cognition. All of these work together. They're a system. No human has not a system. And it's really important to know this. So take a moment and I invite you to think about what are some of the connections that you noticed that came up for you, perhaps in the decision element, maybe the cognition part. What about the embodied part? What were some of the connections that you came to your mind? And then we got some of the strategies we've played with them. Which one stood out for you? Was there one in each of them that really resonated? And how about the ones that came to your mindset? There's one thing I notice a lot, which is mindset of busyness And I would invite us to think about, rather than being busy, as being productive. And productive doesn't mean always on, it means excellent output. And that often comes from understanding how we operate at our very, very best. So there's a summary of a whistle-stop tour. Obviously, it's a deep subject, but hopefully there's something in each of those segments: decision fatigue, cognitive load, embodied cognition, which has chimed with you, that you can start to integrate, connect, and build in. If you'd like to contact me, some details here, I'll leave them on screen. I am going to move through this, and then we're going to go into what's up next. We've got some resources here. I'm not sure, Tom, if you wanted to jump on this point, but I can run you through. And then Leanne and I are going to have a little time for Q&A, which I'm really excited about because we can flesh out some of your questions. But if you want to pick up on the screen, we've got the video resources, which Tom will email to you. You can schedule a call with Tom and Leanne. Obviously, the LinkedIn group. We've got the next workshop coming up on the 11th of March. And there's obviously the free People Network on the 26th of February. So they are all there. And here's how to reach out to Tom, Leanne, and if you want to reach out to me, you can through Tom and Leanne as well. So I really look forward to that. Okay, I'm going to join back into the main group.
Thank you so much, Sal. I think it would be good if we do questions first, so we kind of keep that flow going, if that's all right, because a couple of questions came up while you were chatting, and I've scribbled about 10 questions of my own. So,
hit me.
So let's start with Nicola. So Nicola asked a question which I would never have thought about, and I guess that's revealing in itself, because we don't think about something unless it's in our world. And Nicola asked, do disabled people make more decisions per day compared to non-disabled people, as they have to navigate a world full of barriers? It's a great question.
Thank you. That is a great question. I don't have the knowledge on it, so I can't give an explicit answer to say yes, no, or indifferent. What I would say is that as a disabled person, I'm someone in my family has a disability, so I have recognized that they have different requirements, and the world isn't as easy for someone with a disability of any nature. So there's a high chance that not only if the world isn't geared for you, in like the physical environment or the social environment, there is a more critical decisions to make. So it comes back to, as we said, really refining and understanding if your life demands particular decision-making qualities and they're challenging, then if we can get rid of the extraneous stuff, right, the superfluous, the things that aren't helpful, what to have for dinner, what should I wear, the small things, we have more headspace for the critical ones. But thank you, it's a great question. So I would bounce that back and say, how do you best make decisions? And when it's critical for perhaps your disability, how can you make that work better? And is there something you can trim out in terms of other decision making, which doesn't really have as much impact?
Absolutely, great answer. Thank you, Sal. And then Louise asked a question. I'm neurodivergent, ADHD. Are some of these techniques, so some of the kind of coping mechanisms that you shared, are they therefore more difficult to apply? Yeah, I said I would suspect yes, but I'm going to hand it over to you for a more detailed answer.
Difficult is a nebulous term. What do we mean by difficult? So for each of us, if we're neurodivergent, you've got an ADHD pattern, whatever the pattern of neuro uniqueness that you have, some things are, of course, going to be harder for someone. I work with a lot of dyslexics and ADHD people, and they see the world very differently. I actually see it as a gift, curiously. I know the world isn't geared up for people with neurodiversity to some degree, but you can think in a different way. You can see things that other people can't see. It's like, can you leverage that? Again, it comes down to being, I guess, self-aware to start with and go, how do I best manage my decisions, manage my cognitive load, manage how I am so I live and function best? And if something is difficult, such as one of these strategies, is there a way that's easier for you? Now, I know I'm having to talk general because we're not direct, but if there's something you want to go a bit more into, I'm happy to flesh out, because I know this is quite a nuanced answer unless I have a specificity. But it comes back to, I think it starts with the first thing. What do I need for my unique world? First question. Secondly, then what are the best tools and practices can I use? And then if you need support doing it, then people like Tom and Leanne are great in the training space. Can they help in, really put that into practice for you? I know that's a general answer, but I hope that's somewhat useful.
Absolutely, fully understand that. And yes, Louise, if you need kind of more of a personalized answer to that, just reach out to us and we will definitely help where we can. There was quite a lot of talk in the chat box really about, I guess, the number one nemesis to thinking clearly, cognitive load, decision fatigue, which is our digital addiction. That's exactly it. And there was a lot of talk, people trying to put good boundaries in, but then, you know, the siren's call of a notification just luring you back into the deep waters. I like that Laura mentioned, you know, that she's noticed this kind of algorithm that she has going on in her brain where she doesn't want to deal with something, perhaps a difficult email that's come through. So she instantly picks up her phone and kind of distracts, right? Distracts and avoids. So I've got loads of thoughts on that, but we want yours.
With pleasure. It's a big problem. It's a big problem. So we have to remember, so this is a device. We all have one of these, and obviously multiple other devices. They're lovely. They're wonderful. They allow us to do amazing things. But there's a shadow side that they are now becoming a distraction device. They're an easy go-to. We have to remember that we're on one side of the screen. On the other side, there's at least 1,000 developers who are highly skilled at keeping us there. Most of the smartphone world, they originally worked with psychologists and people in the gambling industry. Right? Think of the infinity pool. So the infinity pool model means, because we're all seeking ends, the brain loves beginning and ends. And the infinity pool model of Instagram, or you know, pick your favorite app, there is no end, so you can't get off. So we have to understand that we have to think differently when we're using these devices. They are tools. You use them unless they use you. So in today's world, having sovereignty of your mind is this weird thing that we're all having to get our heads around now. But I would say if we don't control our mind, someone else will. And it's, I know it sounds like a brutal statement, but sometimes we have to think, okay, why am I leaning on the phone? And as a note, I've done it. If something's difficult, think, oh, I'll check LinkedIn. I'm actually going for what we call an avoidance pattern. I'm avoiding discomfort, or say the difficult email. A better strategy will be to take a pause, simple pause, because this is a reaction. Going to the phone is a reaction. If you pause, it becomes a response. And the best way to create a pause is to take an in breath and an out breath. And then executive decision. Do I really need to take a walk right now? So I think about this difficult email, because distraction is a normal human response. It's tied up with avoidance. It's tied up with anxiety. It's the same neurological pattern. It doesn't solve the problem. And fundamentally, what we want to do is solve the problem. So we need a better strategy. So putting some space in is in. Remember, the phone is designed to keep you there. That's they're designed to do. That's the business model. So we have to design our thinking in a different way. It's a huge field. It's probably an entire workshop-based training on its own. The first thing I always say is just become really lucid in your thinking about this. Like, is this tool that I'm using, or is this tool using me? And I know what I feel about that. It's like, well, no, it's my phone. I use it when I want to, rather than it uses me. So distractions off, notifications off. I go seek them when I need them. So I have no notifications on. So I only go and get them, and it works better because then I can schedule when I pick up my notifications, as opposed to them coming in at critical times and annoying me. And I think that's one great strategy to invite you to try.
Absolutely. We do workshops on digital well-being, and we always start, really, the whole theme of that workshop is it's a tool that you use, not that uses you. And a couple of kind of staggering facts, I guess. Right now, with our current usage, we are spending across an average lifespan, we are spending 12 solid years looking at our phone. That's 24 hours a day for 12 years. The average TikTok user scrolls more than the height of the Eiffel Tower every day. Just dunk, dunk, dunk. And I love that kind of infinity thing. You know, it's designed to keep us hooked. It's dopamine laden, so many impacts. So yeah, something we're really passionate about. And we use a lot in our therapy sessions as well. We see people's anxiety, depression absolutely amplified by their digital exposure. Yes, go on, Sal.
I was going to say, with regard to this, so there's a lot, I've spoken to some really good anthropologists, and so I've already mentioned in our talk that our nervous system brain hasn't changed. We think about 100,000 years, it hasn't really evolved that much, maybe a bit, but our modern world has evolved in a few hundred years, and in the recent time, like 50 years, we've seen technology and things change. It is thought that our brain is hardwired to be around about 40 or 50 people, the original close tribe we would have lived in our hunter-gatherer times. So when we get onto your favorite platform now, you can see some person in America, some person in Asia, and they've all got, I don't know, a plane or whatever. We are comparing ourselves to people we would have never had comparisons against. But our hard wiring is we compare against our fellow, little group. And this is one of the problems with anxiety, because we've got so many reference points which are unviable. The last thing I'd say about this is that it is a distraction device. Human minds love distraction. We all do, right? It's the human mind. We should know this. So this is one of the best practices for becoming present in your body. Something I've learned over many years doing physical disciplines. Getting into the body has helped me get out of the thinking space alone and actually help that become more integrated. So for me, I generally suggest now, do more physical practice. Walk, run, go to the gym, go swimming, go to yoga. It doesn't matter. Play tennis. The more physical we do, the less we are in the abstract conceptual world of the phone. And then there's a balance, because you'll use it to some degree. But I trust some of those thoughts are helpful.
Really helpful. And if we take up swimming, it's really hard to be scrolling your phone when you're swimming. So it's definitely a good plan. Okay, so there's a few things I want to come to. First of all, Jenny talks about the eating the frog method, which I'm sure you're very aware of, but I also want to kind of link that. So Nicola has shared quite openly here that she's starting a new business. And this can be a new business. It can be anything in our life. We have times in our life where we are consumed by it. And she said, there's that pressure, particularly when you're self-employed. I need to be everywhere on social media. I need to create great content as well as serving my clients and getting new sales. And you are jack of all trades when you're running a business. And she said that on top of that, the rest of your life carries on, so you're still spinning the plate of being a wife or a spouse or whatever it is as well. And she now realizes why she's so tired. And I just think that is something that we can all resonate with, whether it's a new business or not is kind of irrelevant. But those moments in our life where we feel we have to be consumed by something, we're probably, I've no doubt that Nicola's super passionate about her business. How do we then protect our energy and our cognition?
Great question. I totally get it. As a business owner for myself and coach lots of business, I get it. It's a big ask there, and there's a lot to do. We start with the groundwork. The first thing that goes into place, and priority number one, sleep. Get sleep sorted. If you sleep well, your brain functions well, your body functions well, your executive cognitive function well. Prioritize sleep, which means no phones, getting to bed at a good time, etc., etc. So there's a lot around sleep hygiene. I know Tom and Leanne would know a lot about that, but tidy up sleep first. Second, prioritize being physically as well as you can. If you go for a walk in the morning, whatever it is, cannot stress enough in today's world of high level thinking and the amount of stuff we've already spoken about coming into ourselves. Being physically connected is we have to design it in, and it gives you a balancing reference point. So they're the two. That's my two go-tos. The third one is boundaries. We cover this in our talk, putting healthy boundaries. You don't need to be everywhere. You just don't, right? Because you can't. So I would say, if it was a sales strategy, what is your most effective output? So I work with a lot of founders and coach a lot of entrepreneurs. We look at what's the most effective route to impact. So if for example, it is LinkedIn is your platform, give 80% of your time there, forget the rest. If it's sales conversations with people, get networking. If it's Instagram, be there. But if you're trying to spread too thin, then you're talking to no one. And that's one of the best things, is to discern where's the best place to put my energy and attention. And it does mean that you're going to have to let some things go. But what it does is it gives you more power and focus into one area, and it cuts the signal from the noise. Now we're sort of stepping into marketing territory here, but it's psychology. It's how can you make the most effective impact with what you have? And it generally comes down to making clear decisions about what to do, not to. By the way, decision, does anyone know where it comes from? Just thought for a second. The word decide comes the same root as homicide. So to get rid of, to kill off. So when we decide, we commit to. a LinkedIn strategy, a sales strategy. We don't try and do every strategy. So being decisive is one of the best things. And the last thing I would say is that I see commitment. When we're committed to something, and commitment's 100%, it's not 99, it's 100%. So if you're committed to your business, then it's like, what's the best way to commit to my business? And it normally isn't everything. It's committing to one thing, absolute full focus at a time. And that really does make the impact difference. But yeah, it's not easy, but there are better ways to do it.
Brilliant advice. My final question, Sal, before we wrap up. What ultimately you've talked about the kind of challenge of if we don't take care of our mind, then ultimately potentially lead to burnout. But actually, when I talk and teach on burnout, a kind of burnout is where the car's completely broken down. We've had warning lights going on for months, long before the car has broken down. So what are the amber warning lights of cognitive overload? What are the things we need to be looking out for?
Great question. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, see the cliff before you get there, for sure. The amber warning lights are the constant need to be distracted, like reaching for the phone, checking for emails, doing 6 things at once. It's poor practice. It's poor practice for everybody, you, your nervous system, your body, your clients, everything. One thing at a time. And it's just the nature of the world that we're swimming in, but it takes a clear mind to say, what do I need to do right now? What needs to happen now? So if you're busy doing lots of things, that's a red flag, or certainly an amber flag. Like, I'm busy doing lots of stuff. Busy is a losing strategy. Highly productive and busy are completely different things. So busy is just being like too many places. Secondly, sleep disruption, always a tell. If your sleep's not good, that's a tell, because your brain has to process all this stuff. It literally has to process all the thinking, all the information. So if your sleep is disruptive, not good, there's another red flag. Something needs to be dealt with then. Also, your level of ability to pay attention. Attention is a fine resource. Attention and time, they go together. If you can't focus for a long period of time, say reading a book or doing a project, then it's because it's just so much filling up the cognitive faculties. So keep an eye on those 3. We don't get caught up in worrying about it, but we do want to start making choices to change. So if any of those are happening, then be really gentle but clear with yourself. This isn't working as best as it could. What do I need to do to change? What do I need to be effective and well? Great questions to lean into, but keep your eye on those signals.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sal. Thank you everyone for your questions. I will hand back to Tom now, who can just wrap everything up for us.
Thank you, Leanne, and thank you very much, Sal. It's very, very informative session. This session has been recorded, so we will be sending out the replay so you can watch back. It doesn't include the chat function, but if you have any questions, we will also send out an email with all of Sal's details, all of our details. So if you have any further questions or would like further support, then please do reach out. I will also include in that email links to the next session, the LinkedIn group, and all the other events that we have going on. Thank you everybody for turning up, interacting and coming along today. Thank you.
Thank you everyone. Have a great rest of the day.